This here is 1430 Cherry Street. This is the Apple Tree Family Center, and it's one of two intake points for homeless services in the city of Philadelphia. So if you find yourself needing housing between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m., you come to one of these intake centers. So we've been here for 3 years. This idea started because we were meeting with the head of the Office of Homeless Services. That was her idea after we protested at her house during COVID. And we asked her in our first meeting, couldn't there be someone at the intake centers greeting people, explaining the process, telling them how security is going to work, offering them some food because you just sit in an empty room all day, ways to charge your phone, that kind of stuff. She was like, good question, I'll look into it. And then she came back and said, no, that's impossible. We have 6 security guards and we can't afford, one person to just explain the process. And so we were like, well, that's stupid. We could do that. So we started showing up with a box of Dunkin' Donuts coffee and 12 donuts and sitting out here. That was exactly 3 years ago.
Oh, so you're going to come back here? Yeah. Awesome.
Most everybody that we talk to is dealing with health issues. Hi, sweetheart. Dealing with being cut off. So the partnership in the Nonviolent Medicaid Army is here every day. It's the movement, right? We have people enter through different fronts of struggle, but overall it's a movement to end the system that creates the need for all of this.
So I was involved in ACT UP for over 15 years. I got involved because I was lonely and looking for dates, and I was very successful. I met my partner there. But at the moment I joined, they were sort of figuring out, for people living with HIV, like what's the biggest barrier to their health and well-being? And over and over again, the answer was housing. And this project grew out of that. We started with a box of coffee and a dozen donuts and have been out here ever since, growing the base of people who are organizing each other.
See, now this is how I got involved, right? I was in an emergency shelter. I would be kicked out at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, and I would lay up there underneath that paintbrush. Friday morning, one of the guys that's with me, we're laying up there, and he goes, yo, there's a table getting set up down the street. I said, what? He said, yeah, there's a table getting set up. So I said, all right. I said, well, we'll go check to see what they got. Here, I said, they got peanut butter and jellies, and they have coffee and at the time. So I started coming every Friday.
We've always made it a political project. It's not just mutual aid, not just helping each other, but also collecting the stories and the solutions to the problems that we're facing.
It's like they punish us to being homeless, is right. It makes me feel like being homeless is a crime. I said to City Hall, and I asked them, I said, hey, wouldn't it be a better option to give the people the money to put them in an apartment and make them feel sustainable and make them feel as a human being? And they told me, oh, well, we don't know where we're going to get the money at for the so-called that part of the budget.
Take the money and go to the shelter and give people apartments. Yeah, it will cost less, but it's a capitalist system. So the shelters, there's directors and co-directors who are getting the salary, that money.
So one of the things we realized is we have a lot of rights on paper, but they weren't being enforced at all. The conditions in shelters, there were lots of shelters with broken bathrooms, with mold growing in the walls.
There's a lot of people that rather be on the streets than to be in the shelter.
That's right.
That's because there's a lot of people that suffer from shelter abuse.
That's right.
There's a lot of places that they're not there for the people. They're there for the paycheck. They're there for the benefits, but they're not there to help people. So they're not doing it from their heart. But I don't know how it is with the women, but in the male setting in the shelter, it's just like prisons.
And so we said we need an ombudsman, somebody who can independently monitor and inspect the system. And we went to city council. We set up lobby visits every Friday morning that we could. We would do them by Zoom from our site right here, or we would walk over to city council in person. And because of our stories and our bringing the solution, instead of turning it into a fight where they cut funding, instead they maintained the funding and funded this ombudsman position
to make sure that people were actually getting the shelter services, the placement, the case management that we have the right to on paper. And so on May 20th, we get to vote to make that a permanent part of the city charter. And all our folks out here are registered to vote, know where their polling place is, because of the work the Homeless Union did 30 years ago to make sure even people without an address had the right to vote just like every other citizen.
They obviously are meeting with large numbers of homeless people and talking to them about the union and really building an army here, an army of the homeless, and some hope, and it gives me an understanding of the solidarity throughout the United States and that we're building all over the country.